Some people in this audience will continue the experiment when they go home. They'll continue the experiment when they go home. They want to get really familiar with that energy. They want to get really familiar with that feeling that it feels like it's already happened. We don't pray in this work to have our prayers answered. We get up as if they're already answered. Do you understand? So then, what happens if it doesn't happen in 3 days? You're not that good. That's it. No, you're not that good. That's all that means. And some people tune in, and weeks go by, and just when they're ready to give up, just when they're ready to cash in on their vision, they tune in one more time, they step into the unknown, and here comes a synchronicity. Now, what do you think they're going to say when that happens? Oh, shoot. Another synchronicity. What do you think they're going to say? There's not going to be an awakening like, oh, hey, there's a breadcrumb. Something happened here. The universe is talking back to me. I'm in the dream, but I'm creating now. There's feedback in my life. Let me pay more attention to what I'm doing so I can see if I can create a little bit more of that. And your belief in your reality, the belief in that possibility that you're creating is strengthened because it's literally changing your energy. You're feeling the energy of your future with every one of the synchronicities, and the excitement and the inspiration and the joy that something is happening is the very energy that keeps it happening. Are you with me still? But there's a caveat. One emotional reaction to someone or something in your life. One response emotionally to your own thought. Like magic now, you seamlessly slipped right back into your old self, the same old energy, the same emotion, and now you can't see that future because that emotion is causing you to look at that future through the lens of the past, and you'll walk right past your creation and never see it. Come on, are you with me? So that means then that you got to get so good at getting relaxed in your heart and awaken your brain, you got to be able to do it with your eyes open as well as you do with your eyes closed. And maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And if you can, get ready. Because weird and wonderful stuff is going to begin to happen in your life as a result of your change in energy. It means then that you have to practice getting familiar with that energy, getting in the energy of your future, and doing it with your eyes open, just like you do with your eyes closed. That's the challenge. I never planned on doing any of this. But after I studied spontaneous remissions from diseases, and I was a Puritan at that time, you know, I was vegan, all of that stuff, and I really thought that there was going to be some element of something in there, you know, whatever it was, that person did to be a Puritan, and I was that person, and I was shocked that none of that mattered. Some people ate meat, some people didn't, some people this, that, some people prayed, some people didn't, some people were young, some people were old. None of those things were common to them. And when I studied what happened with people that had spontaneous remissions, I realized that they were breaking the habit of their old self and reinventing a new self. That's what they did. They realized that there was some intelligence that was giving them life, that they had to make contact with, they had to surrender to, they had to get very clear in that future, and then surrender that future to a greater mind and trust in the outcome. And they started to trust in the unknown. And they became conscious of their unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. And they changed. They said, if I only have 6 months to live, how do I want to live? Do I really want to be an attorney? No. I want to be an artist. That's what I really want to be. And they had a diagnosis of cancer. The prognosis was 6 months, you know, the voodoo curse. And they just changed their life, and they kept living. And they just kept living and kept living. And they had time every single day where they would do something that they loved to do, so much so that they lost track of space and time. They forgot about their life, and they were in that creative process. When they opened their eyes, when they turned the lights on in the room, in their inward experience, they thought it would be like 10, 15 minutes later, it was an hour later. They lost track of space and time just like you did in that meditation before the break. Are you with me still? And I realized, well, geez, if this is what people did in order to heal, and I went back and studied neuroscience and did all that stuff, if it worked on these people, and these were the commonalities that I found, and it had nothing to do with all those other things I thought it would, then if it worked on them, it should work on other people. And if I could find the language and teach it in the right way and get people together in a community and they can learn that information and apply it, it should work on sick people, it should work on well people, it should work on anybody, because when they change, their life changes. Are you with me? And weeks went by. Years went by. We were running these like Friday night and Saturday events, turned into 2-day events, weekend events, one for years, and guess what happened? Not a whole lot. Everybody felt better at the end of the week long. Whoa, I feel better, but wow, I have a greater sense of well-being, but I wasn't seeing the changes in healings that I wanted to see in people's bodies, and I kept looking if there was a better way for me to say it, if there was a better language, if I could demystify the process. I kept going. After every event, they would say, can you teach another level? And then I'd teach another level, and they'd say, can you teach another level? And then I'd say, I don't know anything else, like I ran out, like I don't know anything. Then I started having mystical experiences the very morning of the first event that I didn't know what I was going to teach. And I was completely having a lucid moment, and it changed everything about me in one instant. And all of a sudden, we started to notice people stepping out of wheelchairs, like right in front of my eyes, that were in a wheelchair for 10 years with MS, and another person. And people started sending emails, and the emails said, what? You're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. I went to my doctor, and da-da-da, and then it wasn't there any longer, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm epigenetically signaling certain genes, down-regulating them for the disease, and I'm up-regulating the genes for health. And the doctor would say, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I don't want to know, but do whatever you're doing. You're the miracle. You're the 1%. And when I started seeing those changes taking place right before my eyes, I was disturbed by it. Not disturbed like I was upset, but it got me thinking a lot of, like, what happened to that person? Like, she was in the wheelchair for 10 years. After that meditation, she's dancing in front of the stage. Right after the meditation, dancing around out of her wheelchair. Some inward event must have taken place in the body that transformed her biology. It happened in real time. And I said, I got to start measuring. And I gathered a group of scientists and researchers, and we began this journey of trying to demystify the mystical. And we started teaching these events called Information to Transformation. And we did brain scans before the event, brain scans after the event. I wanted to see brains in real time. I wanted to see the process of change in real time. We studied people during their meditations. I wanted to see the post measurements in the brain, and I wanted to say the changes weren't just in their mind, they were in their brain. And if it takes a clear intention and elevated emotion, and if we're going to believe in that future we're imagining with all of our heart, it's got to be open and activated. We've got to train people how to open that heart that's been protected and closed for years. And we practiced, measured, and after the first few events, when we did the analysis on the brains that we measured, we found out that 90% of the people had a more than 80% change in their brain for the better, and I was blown away. That's what the neuroscientists told me. And if I ask my neuroscientists to this day, when I say, how many people's brains get better at the end of the week-long event, they say 100%. They say 100%. I said, are you sure? I'm absolutely sure. Everybody's brain is working better at the end of 7 days. And so we had all these brain measurements, all these heart measurements. I wanted people to know when they were there and when they weren't there. We started measuring immune responses, gene expression. I can tell you can change your genes in 4 days. We have the data to suggest that. And all the genes that are upregulated are genes that are really good for growth and repair in your body. From neurogenesis to antioxidants to all of these wonderful chemicals that cause tissues to repair and regenerate. We measure the telomeres, the little shoestrings on the end of the DNA. And when the body is under a severe amount of stress, those telomeres shorten and our biological age shortens. It determines our biological age. Could we, in fact, lengthen people's lives by modifying one particular thing in their lifestyle? Not their diet, not anything else, not their exercise. Could meditation lengthen those telomeres? 75% of the people in the study lengthened their telomeres. And one person did it in just a few days. And that's a quantum event. In fact, I was talking to the researcher on the phone, and I said, listen, I just want to run this by you. Like, I know telomeres are like fingernails or like hair. It takes time for them to grow, and if you change a person's thoughts and you have them do different things and you have them eat better and have them exercise and teach them how to relax and all that stuff, I saw the studies that your telomeres in 3 months or 6 months will lengthen. They'll just grow because there's less stress on the cells. I said, but we're having people stepping out of wheelchairs, all kinds of crazy things going on. Is it possible? Because if it's taking time, it's a Newtonian thing. That's matter to matter, it'll ultimately grow, but we're seeing people have dramatic changes in real time. Is it possible that they could lengthen their telomeres in the present moment when they have that transformative experience? In other words, could a quantum event change their telomere length? And we had one person in the study that actually did it within a few days. That's a quantum event. And the researcher could not believe it, and neither could I. And so we have tons of data that show that you can change your brain waves and get really good at creating coherent brain waves. You can connect to that energy and that information. And then we started partnering with the University of California in San Diego, and we brought on a team of empirical scientists, and we're doing really great research on all the things I talked to you about. We're measuring thousands of metabolites in the blood before the event, the end of the event. The person has one of those really high gamma brainwave states. We draw their blood right afterwards. We want to know what the information is in that blood that wasn't there before, and then we measure 24 hours. We put all that all the effort into understanding what is in the plasma, in the blood, in the microbiome, in the gene, in the immune system, in the breast milk, in the urine, in the tears of individuals, and every single time that we look, we're amazed at what we discover. And over again, we're pushing the envelope of human potential. So I wanted to just show you some slides before we finish today to just use some pictures to put it all together, to have it make sense. And all I want you to do is go like this. Oh, I just want you to do some of those, okay? So you ready? Poke the person next to you. Here we go. In an age of information, ignorance is a choice. Would you agree that you don't need an authority, you don't need a doctor, you don't need a priest, thank God, you don't need a governor, you don't need a teacher to learn information, you don't need someone to give you that information, because we're in an age of information. We can get information from technology, and it's at our fingertips, and we get to choose what information we want to learn and experience. Okay, so then if you keep thinking the same thoughts, you keep making the same choices, you keep doing the same things, you keep creating the same experiences, you keep feeling the same emotions, you have to agree with me, your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, your immune system, your gene expression will stay the same because you're staying the same. All right, give people new information. Have them learn that information. Have them wire that information in their brain. And if they're learning new information, they're going to think differently. Have them make a different choice to apply that information, to personalize it, to demonstrate it, to do something with it. And if you get your behaviors to match your intentions, you're going to have a new experience. That new experience produces a new feeling and a new emotion, and that new feeling and new emotion could inspire new thoughts. So then most people get stuck in the trap of their biology, and then they try to make changes. But what happens when the chemo doesn't work? What happens when the radiation doesn't work? What happens when the drug trial doesn't work? What happens when the surgery doesn't work? What happens when the gluten-free, vegan, ketogenic, microbiotic diet doesn't work? What happens next? Nothing changes in your life until you change. Learn that information, do something with it, create a new experience, feel a new emotion, your biology changes. And I can tell you without a doubt, if you do that for 7 days, your body will look like a completely different body in 7 days. All right, so now, your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. If you keep thinking the same way, acting the same way, and feeling the same way, you would have to agree with me, you're the same personality. You're the same old self, and you have the same life, the same personal reality, and you're living in your past. Think differently, think new thoughts, do different things, create new experiences and new feelings. Now you're creating a new personality, and that's a new self, and that's connected to a new personal reality, and your future looks nothing like your past. Going from the old self to the new self, going from the old personality to the new personality, you have to cross the river of change. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, get ready. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be unpredictable. There's going to be some uncertainty. And that is the moment you're stepping into the unknown. And if the body has been conditioned to be the mind, the body starts telling the brain, start tomorrow. It's too hard. It's your mother's fault. And if we listen to that thought as if it's the truth, that same thought leads to the same choice, which leads to the same behavior, which creates the same experience, that produces the same old feeling, and people say, this feels good to me. This feels right to me. No, that feels familiar to you. Going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, it is the biological, it is the chemical, it is the hormonal death of the old self. And crossing that river of change, that is the perfect place to create in. That's the unknown. We can't create from the known. We can only create from the unknown. So what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? And with intention and with attention, you begin to fire and wire that you can. Keep doing it enough times, and that becomes the new voice in your head. Imagine, visualize, I don't care what you call it, rehearse how you're going to be in your life. Think about it. Rehearse what you're going to do with your wealth, what you're going to do with your health, how you're going to be with your family, how you're going to be differently with your enemy. Rehearse it so much that you start to behave that way. Install the circuitry. Teach your body to feel a different emotion instead of the emotion of the past. Keep feeling it, and sooner or later you run into a new future. And when you cross that river, there's all kinds of new experiences that you would have never had if you cling to the familiar. The idea in these workshops, after I started seeing the changes that were taking place in people in real time during a weekend event, I changed everything. I said, we just can't do a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. We got to come in on Wednesday night. We got to do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we got to elongate this. We have more time to practice and more time to measure. And so we started doing these 4.5-day events, and they were all about information to transformation. Give people the right information, have them wired in their brain, have them learn it, have them remember it, set up the conditions in the environment for them to experience it, make them feel safe enough to do it, get their behaviors to match their intentions, get that clear intention combined with an elevated emotion, there should be some transformation. Measure that transformation, and sooner or later you're going to have more information to teach transformation. And if you can keep gathering more information, you can teach transformation even better, and you can shorten the distance between knowledge and experience. That's exactly what we did. So remember I talked about brainwaves? Do you remember that? And I said that beta brainwave patterns are kind of fast brainwave patterns. All of you are in beta brainwave patterns because you're local in space and time. You're aware of your body, you're aware of every element in your environment, and you're aware of time. And your senses plug you into reality, and what you're hearing and seeing and feeling and smelling and tasting has to be integrated by the brain, and that's called beta brainwaves. Close your eyes, take a few breaths, let your inner world be more real than your outer world, and all of a sudden your brainwaves and your thinking brain slows down even more, and that's alpha. And now you're seeing in more of a creative state, an imaginary state. You're seeing in pictures, you're seeing in images, and the voice in your head goes away. Let your body fall asleep, keep your mind awake, and now lights are out in the thinking neocortex. You have no awareness of your body, no awareness of your environment, no awareness of time. You're half awake and you're half asleep. The body's resting in such a light sleep. While you're conscious and awake, it feels so safe that you can shut the lights out in the neocortex, and now you're very suggestible to information. Fall asleep, and you move into delta brainwave patterns, and now the body's in a catatonic state. Gamma is a frequency that's higher than beta. It's so fast that it's an arousal, but the arousal feels really good. And that's super consciousness or super awareness. So then, the purpose of meditation is to get beyond the analytical mind, and what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And some people have a very thin veil between their conscious mind and their subconscious mind, and they are very suggestible to information. Others of us tend to have a little thicker analytical mind, a little harder to get beyond it. But I guarantee you, if I got beyond mine, I swear to you, you can get beyond yours. So then, the more analytical you are, the less suggestible you are to information. The less analytical you are, the more suggestible you are to information. Yes or no? And suggestibility is your ability to accept that information, to believe in that information, to surrender to that information as if it's the truth without ever analyzing it. And that's exactly what programs the autonomic nervous system and the subconscious mind into a destiny. So if you're sitting in front of the TV and it's 11 o'clock at night and you're half awake and you're half asleep and you're watching a television commercial that says as you age, your immune system is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, you're suggestible to that information. Are you with me? Okay, so then the job is to go from high-range beta to mid-range beta to low-level beta, cross the analytical mind, move into alpha, theta, into delta. Now you're in the operating system where you can rewrite a program. You're in the subconscious system. So beta goes to alpha. Alpha goes to theta goes to. So beta and alpha represent the conscious mind, and alpha, theta, and delta represent the subconscious mind. All right, so then what we discovered as you slow your brain waves down and you shut the lights out in the neocortex, the slower the brain waves get, the more energy moves into the limbic brain, the seat of your autonomic nervous system. And if you can function in theta, now you're conscious in your subconscious mind. There's very little activity or energy in the neocortex, and it moves into the limbic brain. That's the flow of energy and awareness. So then what we're looking for in the brain is very coherent brainwave patterns. And when brain waves are coherent, they kind of dance to the same rhythm. They're in a synchronization. They're in a certain level of order. They're all to the same rhythm. If you have different waves that are different amplitudes, different frequencies, and they're interfering with each other, now you have incoherent waves. And that's like a choppy C, or that's like a group of drummers that have no rhythm all banging on the drums at the same time. That's incoherence. So then when you're stressed out and you're shifting your attention to one thing, to another thing, to another person, to another feeling in your body or to time, as you activate any one of these different neurological networks, as you mismanage your attention, you mismanage your energy, and as you activate these different circuits, the brain begins to fire incoherently, out of order, and you're obsessing and you're narrowing your focus on whatever it is that's causing you to become so preoccupied. Open your awareness, take your attention off everything physical, everything material, everything known, your body, your environment, and time. Go from a narrow focus to a broad focus. Go from a convergent focus to a divergent focus. Take all of your attention off everything known and put it on the unknown. Stop thinking about all those people and things in your life and think of nothing, and keep your attention on space. Those different compartments of the brain that are once subdivided begin to unify, begin to synchronize. What syncs in the brain links in the brain, and you start feeling more whole, you start feeling more like yourself, and that is when the brain moves into order. When the nervous system, which is controlling and coordinating all the other systems, is in coherence, it's in order, it's in rhythm, it's in balance, we would call that health. When there's incoherence in the nervous system, it's like static on the wires. You can't get the information, you can't read the information, you can't hear the signal. If you start putting a coherent frequency over an incoherent frequency, in time, the coherent frequency will begin to entrain the incoherent frequency, and sooner or later, you'll have the system back into balance, and that's called health. And the best way I can describe it is this. Picture each one of these metronomes as a neurological network in your brain. You got that? Hello. Each one of these is a neurological network in your brain, like this. Now, what do you see in the brain? Chaos, incoherence, disorder, a lack of rhythm. Are you with me still? But if you keep opening your focus, you keep opening your awareness, you keep focusing on nothing, broadening your awareness and sensing nothing but space, and you keep doing that over and over again, sooner or later, you're going to start to entrain your nervous system to that unified field of energy that exists beyond your senses, whose signature is order, whose signature is wholeness, whose signature is oneness, it's connection. And if you keep doing it, sooner or later, you start seeing those different circuits in the brain starting to unify and organize into a certain level of coherence. Are you with me still? Keep doing it, keep opening your awareness, and all of a sudden you see more of them functioning in a greater level of coherence. Are you done? No. It takes a little time to get them all functioning in order. How many people see there's a little more coherence than when we started? That's exactly what happens in your brain. That's exactly what happens in your heart when it begins to work in unison. Keep going, keep focusing your awareness on nothing, keep broadening your sense of space, keep doing it, and what do you see happening now? All those neurological networks are almost firing in order, yes? Keep it going, and then you know what happens, right? All of them are beating in order except that one stubborn neurological network. I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, I want to quit, I need a brain scan, something's wrong with me. You keep opening your focus, you keep broadening your awareness to nothing, sooner or later, coherence will consume incoherence, and sooner or later, that voice in your head that says, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, all of a sudden gets trained to a greater level of order. And that's exactly what we see in the brain. And when it moves in order like that, the energy in the brain builds as long as you sustain it. So we put on these quantitative EEG caps. We measure about 38 compartments of the brain. Every different part of the brain, different real estate, has different functions. And we're looking to see if we can train a brain into a greater level of order. When every single part of those leads that are on different parts of the brain are all lined up where the valleys and the peaks are in order, we would call that coherence. The entire brain is resonating together as one big neurological network. Did you get that? Incoherence is when one is firing different than the other, and when the waves come together, they cancel each other out, and energy in the brain goes down. So when you see in some of the scans I'm going to show you in a bit, if you see blue in the brain, that means there's a very, very limited or very little, in fact, no coherence, or an abnormally less amount of coherence in the brain. If you see pink, it means it's normal. That's normal coherence, what the majority of people experience. And then if you see red, that means there's a lot of coherence in the brain. And a lot of coherence is typically a good thing. The thicker the red line, the further away from normal you are. This is a normal brain scan. This is someone in beta brainwave patterns. We're looking at each one of these vertical lines here as a second. You can see they're in beta brainwave patterns. Watch what happens when they open their awareness. What do you see? The entire brain synchronized in phase to alpha brainwave patterns. The entire brain is dancing to the same song, the same symphony. Here's another person. Coherent alpha brainwave patterns. The entire brain is in coherent alpha. Here's another one. Global coherent patterns of alpha. Every single part of the brain is dancing to the same frequency, the same rhythm. Look at this person. The entire brain is in even a slower brainwave pattern called coherent, synchronized theta brainwave patterns. That's that suggestible state where your body's relaxing in a light rest or sleep while you're conscious and awake. That's that hypnotic state. Okay, I'm going to show you some brain scans. This is delta, this is theta, this is alpha, this is beta, and all of this is high beta, higher and higher degrees of beta. If you see a lot of red in the brain, it means the brain is really aroused. There's a lot of energy in the brain. There's a hyperactivity in the brain. It's on hyperdrive. If you see blue in the brain, that means there's very little energy in the brain. It's not aroused at all, and it's very little activity in the brain. If you don't see red or you don't see blue, it means it's normal. So take a look at this person here. This person came to our event, one of those 4-day events. They had severe anxiety. I mean, panic attacks, the whole bit. You see blue in the front of the brain. There's the nose right there. What does blue mean? Very little energy or activity in the frontal lobe. What's happening to the rest of the brain? The boss is out to lunch and the rest of the brain is having a party. There's no executive function in the brain. 4 days of meditation, take a look at their brain. At the end of 4 days, there's no red any longer in the brain. The person healed themselves of anxiety just by opening their awareness to space. Here's another person with severe anxiety. Look at all this red, a lot of energy in high beta, high beta, high beta. Take a look at their brain after 4 days. No sign of anxiety in their brain at all, at any brainwave state. Here's a person with Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is a deficiency in dopamine in the brain, and when there's not enough dopamine in the brain goes into kind of a heightened state of spastic paralysis, and the body freezes, or you have tremors, intention tremors, or you have gaits that are kind of difficult. This is a person with a lot of hyperactivity in their upper motor neuron condition. Take a look at their brain after 4 days after the event. This person no longer has tremors. This person pretty much is 90 to 95% better, healing Parkinson's disease by thought alone. Take a look at this person, traumatic brain injury, driving with his son. They swerve off the road. His son dies instantaneously. He goes through the windshield. He's in a wheelchair. What do you see in his brain? What does blue mean? No energy in the brain at all. Lights are out in the brain. There's no energy to control the body. Take a look at his brain after 4 days of connecting to nothing. That's normal, yes or no? Now, this is called the quantitative EEG. Don't panic. This is 1 hertz, 2 hertz, 3 hertz, 4 hertz. That's delta. 5, 6, 7, 8, that's theta. 9, 10, 11, 12 is alpha, and this is beta. This is that same guy that went through the windshield. Look at his brain right here, in alpha and in beta. What do you see? Blue, yes? And he has problems with language, he has problems with happiness, he has problems with memory, he has problems with attention, because lights are out in the thinking neocortex. Take a look at his brain after 4 days of meditation. Green is normal. Are you getting this? He's had a dramatic change in his mobility. He's stood up, he can crawl now, he couldn't use his fingers, he's using utensils. It's energy that's changing matter. This is a CEO of a company in Phoenix, Arizona in the United States. She's an attorney, she's the CEO, she's a mother, and she's having images in her brain, and she's reacting to those images. She's having a lot of chatter in her brain. She had severe anxiety. After 4 days of meditation, completely changed. Green means normal. No, this is high beta. This is her brain before the event. Look at all this red in high beta, high, very high frequency of beta. This is her brain after 4 days of meditation. Green is normal. This is her brain months later. There's no sign of anxiety in her brain. She healed herself of anxiety, and now she says, I totally trust myself and trust my decisions. Look at depression now. Same thing. What do you got here? Blue means what? No energy in the brain. Take a look at this person's brain after 4 days of meditation. What's green? Normal. Take a look at what's happening in high beta. Same person. Lights are out. Look at their brain at the end of 4 days. Totally normal brain. Healed themselves of depression. I can go on. We have hundreds of these. Okay, that's normal brain activity. Then all of a sudden, we started seeing this. That's gamma. That person's having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. Whatever's going on between their ears is more real than the trauma or the betrayal that happened in the past. The inner event is more real than any past outer event, and that is an arousal. So when waves are coherent, and they're rhythmic, and they're orderly, when they interfere with each other, as they interfere with each other, when those waves come together and they unify, something really amazing happens. They create a bigger wave. Does that make sense? So coherence builds energy in the brain and the heart. And the higher the amplitude, the higher the energy. Does that make sense? As coherent waves interfere, they create bigger waves. And then those bigger waves, as they interfere, create bigger waves, and you keep building energy in the brain, and that's called resonance. Take a look at this person. Physician from London. This is her brain at the beginning of her meditation. We're watching this, and she goes into a very, very high state of gamma brainwave patterns. She's in high beta here, and we're thinking she doesn't look very stressed to us, but she was transitioning to coherent gamma brainwave patterns. The neuroscientists that were measuring her brain were yelling, seizure, 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 and she's having the most incredible feeling of love taking place that she'd never felt before in her life, and she's thinking, If this is a seizure, she's a doctor. I'm going to have a few more of these. Most incredible feeling of love she ever reported in her life. That's connection. She's moving closer to source. She's connecting to a greater level of order, a greater level of consciousness. And look at her brain. She's moving all this energy in the brain. She's got coherence just about in every level, and a lot of coherence moving to gamma. How much energy in gamma? It says here 200 standard deviations outside of normal in gamma. Now let me give you an idea of how much that is. This is called a bell curve or a C curve. Have you ever heard of it? If we were to measure anything in this room or in a population, whether we were measuring height or weight or intelligence or eyesight or hearing or liver enzymes, no matter what we were measuring, we would see the same curve in a community, in a group of people. And where it's the highest represents the greatest number of people. So scientists draw a line down the center of this bell curve and break it into 3 portions because 97% of the population falls into either 1, 2, 3 standard deviations above normal or 1, 2, 3 standard deviations below normal. In other words, this is normal eyesight. These are people that have better eyesight, and that makes up about 13% of the population. There's some people that have worse eyesight. That makes up 13% of the population. Then you have some people that have really, really, really good eyesight. That's 2% of the population. You have some people that have really, really poor eyesight. No matter what we're measuring, 99.7% of the population is 3 standard deviations above and below normal. So if you're 3 standard deviations above normal, that's pretty good. Would you say? That's 2% of the population. That's a small percentage. Okay, there's 3 standard deviations. There's 5 standard deviations. There's 50 standard deviations. There's 100 standard deviations. There's 150 standard deviations. There's 200 standard deviations outside of normal. She had another 197 of those lines. That's what amount of energy she has in her brain. That's a lot of autonomic regulation. And what is the area that's on fire, which we'll learn a lot about tomorrow? The pineal gland, right around the pineal gland in this area right here called Brodmann's Area 30. Brodmann's Area 30 is responsible for creating long-term memories that are associated with joy and love. She's not in any type of pain, and the radio receiver in the brain is switched on. Now check it out. Lights are out in her thinking neocortex. She's in theta. The personality, the identity is gone. Look at the underside of the brain, the limbic brain, the seat of the autonomic nervous system is in a high amount of coherent gamma brainwave patterns, and the autonomic nervous system controls and coordinates every other system in the body, and it's sending information in the form of frequency to every cell in the body, and that is the moment the body has an instantaneous upgrade. Now that's her arm, a physician that came to the event. This is the day before she came to the event. She's had eczema her whole life. From the time she was 6 months old, she's a doctor now. She takes the cortisone creams, she does the antihistamines, she stays away from alcohol, sugar, matter to matter, seeing if you can make the difference. This is her arm after the event, completely gone. Energy and form matter. She took a bite of wholeness. This is her hand before the event. This is her hand after the event. No sign of eczema. She got a biological upgrade. She connected to a greater level of order, and that arousal touched every single cell in her body. And if stress is autonomic dysregulation, and that's a high amount of energy and coherence, this is an enormous amount of autonomic regulation. And the body's being lifted to a greater frequency. And now it's being dragged out of the past into the present moment. Does that make sense? Take a look at this person. Normal brainwave patterns. What do you see happening here? 260 standard deviations outside of normal in gamma. Remember, 3 is 2% of the population. Is that a lot of energy? Check it out. The area right around the pineal gland and Brodmann's Area 30 on fire. The person is creating a long-term memory. They're having a full-on sensory experience without their senses. Whatever's going on in their inner world is way more real than anything that's ever happened in their outer world. And it's not chemical, it's electric. Turn the brain over, look at the underside of the brain, look at the limbic brain, the seat of the autonomic nervous system, and it is in high, high gamma. That's a lot of energy in that nervous system that controls and coordinates all other systems. Take a look at this person. Normal brainwave patterns. Transitioning, where are they going? Into gamma brainwave states, 160 standard deviations outside of normal. In gamma, check this out. Look at the coherence in this guy's brain. This is delta. Delta is the carrier for theta. Theta is the carrier for alpha. Alpha is carrying beta. Beta is going into high beta all the way to gamma. The brain is in a state of resonance, a high degree of order. I can bring this person on the stage and he can do that right in front of you. We have students in this community that can go right into gamma, and the scientists say to them, how do you do that? And they say, it's really hard not to. What do you see? What's happening here? When scientists is looking at this, and we're watching this in real time, and they start leaning in, and they look at me like this, and I look at that, and I say to them, oh, she's going to pop. What do you mean? She's going to pop. What does that mean? Just watch. 250 standard deviations outside of normal. Look at all this coherence in every single part of the brain. Waves synchronized to other waves. The entire brain is in a very elevated state of gamma. And check it out. Hypercoherence. Delta is carrying theta. Theta is carrying alpha. Alpha is a harmonic of beta. High beta is a harmonic of regular beta, all the way into gamma. The brain has waves within waves, patterns within patterns, order within order, and that's called resonance in the brain. And energy keeps building. In other words, when it's coherent in delta, that's the base. And when those waves come together and they form a bigger wave, now they have theta riding on delta. And then the theta waves come together and they interfere and they start creating a bigger wave. That's alpha, and then alpha to beta, and then all the way into high beta and into gamma. And there's waves upon waves upon waves, and the nervous system is functioning at a great level of resonance, a standing wave of order. Are you with me still? And we have some people that do it so well that you use probably 4 to 7% of your brain, or we do, in our normal waking day. You have a little bit of sensory information, a little visual cortex, some association centers, some motor centers, and a small part of the brain is firing. When the brain moves into a state of resonance, we have people in our community that are recruiting more than 27% of the entire brain is firing as one complete system. The mathematical probability of that happening, we looked it up, is statistically impossible, the article said, but if it did happen, it would happen as a random event that only lasts for a millisecond, and this person is sustaining that state for an extended period of time. It is supernatural. We started doing work, we started looking more closely, and guess who the culprit was all of a sudden? We noticed that before the person had that moment of connection, the moment before they connected to that energy, that source, that connectedness, they moved into theta. And what's theta? The hypnotic state. And when you're suggestible to information and your eyes are closed and there's music filling the space and you're not smelling or tasting or feeling anything, you're still suggestible to information. Yes or no? But instead of getting the information from three-dimensional reality, from the hypnotist, from the TV commercial, your eyes are closed and you're beyond space and time. There's only one other place you can get information from, and that's frequency. Get your brain coherent, it can read the field, and it can transduce that information into profound imagery in the brain. And when we started seeing theta, we discovered that theta became the carrier wave for a person to go into gamma. And when we saw a person go 10 standard deviations outside of theta because they were so relaxed in their heart and kept relaxing into their heart, kept relaxing into the heart, they were half awake and half asleep, there they go. They go right into high gamma brainwave patterns, 200 standard deviations outside of normal. And the underside of the brain, the limbic brain, the seat of the autonomic nervous system, is processing a very coherent, very fast frequency, and energy is informing matter through the autonomic nervous system. Take a look at this one. What do you see right here? High theta, yes? You're starting to see coherence taking place on every level. Once they move into theta, 10 standard deviations outside of normal, what's going to happen next? They're going to connect to energy and frequency. They're going to connect to information. 400 standard deviations outside of normal in gamma brainwave patterns. That is an arousal. And the arousal is not fear. The arousal is not pain. The arousal is ecstasy. You are dipping into source. You are connecting to oneness. And it is an awakening. It is a brainstorm. It is a moment of connection. It is union. It is that moment where we begin to remember that we forgot. And people are doing this more and more. When we draw the blood from people who have these elegant moments, there's information in that blood that reverses cancer, that downregulates genes for Alzheimer's, that changes the microbiome, that changes breast milk, that changes neurodegeneration, causes neurogenesis, releases endogenous opiates, cause the body to have a euphoric state where there's less pain. And that information is not coming from anything they're eating or anything that they're getting from their environment, is their connection to that invisible field of energy that exists beyond your senses. And you just got to get relaxed in your heart and awaken your brain and stay there long enough for you to begin to connect to it. And when you do, you begin to experience these elegant states. What happens when the inner experience, that moment of connection, that arousal, is carrying such a strong emotional quotient that it's greater than the shock or the betrayal that keeps you connected to the past? Come on, think about this. When you have an internal experience in your mind that carries an amplitude of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional addiction in your body, you could become biologically changed. So here you go. Here's a person living their normal life, and they have a shock, they have a betrayal, they have a loss. That experience then becomes neurologically branded in their brain. That's what experience does. And the emotion then conditions the body into the past. And now that person has a change in their biology. Their past is in their biology. And every time they remember the event and every time they think about the event, they fire and wire the circuits and create more chemistry as if they're re-experiencing the event. And now the body and the brain are literally in the past. And when that occurs, we create beliefs about ourselves and our lives from past experience. They're the thoughts that we think neurologically and the feelings that we feel chemically, what we embrace within the biology of our past memories, which ultimately becomes who we are, our state of being. Now think about this. How are you going to change that out of the body? You're going to have an experience that carries a quotient of energy that's greater than the shock of the past event, yes or no? And when those people go into those high states of gamma, the language specialist said, they say, I felt it. They felt it somatically, like in every cell of their body, their heart turned on like an engine. And they feel it emotionally, like I never in my life felt love, but it wasn't love. It's like love, but it's way bigger than that. It's like the best feeling I've ever, it's bliss, it's ecstasy. No, it's not that, it's They do that. So then if you have one of those gamma states, what's going to happen? If it's greater than the shock or betrayal, that internal experience in the moment could rewire your brain from that experience and send a new chemical or emotional signal to your body, and your biology would literally change, and you would say the past no longer exists in the body, and that's the moment the body gets the upgrade. It's moved right into the present moment. How many people understand? And we could say then that new profound experience becomes an event that you will never forget. And we see this over and over again, and people look back at their past, and they always say the same thing. God, I'm so glad I took this journey because I would have never had this experience. So typically, our outer world, the experiences in our outer world change our inner world, doesn't it? If we start doing the inner work and we change our inner world, we could actually change our inner world. Keep changing your inner world, and all of a sudden it starts changing your outer world, and that's when it gets exciting. So we do walking meditations in our week-long events. We do at least 4. And we're typically on the beach at 6 in the morning, and honeymooners are out there. We've been called mob art in parks. We've been called UFO gazers. We've been called zombies. We've been called everything. Imagine 2,500 people just all of a sudden showing up with their hands over their heart, with their eyes closed, standing still. Check this guy out. Businessman from Mexico City, never really meditated before, came across the formula, started doing the formula. Never meditated before, and by the way, people who say I never meditated before, they always have the best brain scans. Because they're like, dude, tell me what to do. I don't know what I'm doing, just tell me what to do. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Look at him, he's just been practicing for a month or so. We ask him to close his eyes, and we measure his brain before he starts the walking meditation, and he's in coherent, global, alpha brainwave states. He's kind of in a great state. Now take a look at his brain after 1 hour of walking. Changed his brain, changed his life. He's living that future. It's real. He's aroused. He's remembering his future. And then we measure the heart. I always say the brain thinks, but the heart knows. Elevated emotions like gratitude and love and joy and inspiration and peace and wholeness and trust, knowingness, presence, empowerment, an elevated state opens this center. You know the emotions that are connected to these. These tend to be more selfish. These tend to be more selfless. This is the beginning of the divine in us. It's the creative center of the brain. Now, each one of these blocks represents 5 minutes. So this is a person that we were measuring during a meditation. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 minutes, maybe 50, almost 55 minutes. Their heart is in perfect coherence. They're feeling a pretty good amount of love and gratitude there. Okay, they finish the meditation. There's a break. They go into the next meditation. Here we go again, back into the next meditation. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 minutes. The heart is back in coherence. Is she starting to figure this out? Okay, take a look at the next day. The next day, she's in her meditation. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 minutes. She's back into heart coherence. Is it becoming a skill? She's creating these feelings, creating these emotions. Now check this out. Look at this. That's super coherence right there in the heart. But here's the problem. She wasn't in a meditation. I said, look, it's 8 o'clock at night. I said, what are you doing? She said, I was getting ready for bed, and all of a sudden I felt this enormous amount of love. It was so much love that I had to literally lay down on my back. That's when she lays down and surrenders, and then she rolls onto her side, and she falls asleep. A whole hour, more than an hour, she's having a spontaneous love attack. Not a panic attack, a love attack. Her body just decides to feel love on its own because it's conditioned to be that way. It could happen to you. Really weak HRV here. Look at this person. They're in their 70s, 5, 10, 15 minutes of heart coherence. I'll take it. I'll take it. Next meditation, almost 10 minutes, 8 minutes, back into heart coherence. She's learning. Look at this person. Really, really weak heart. Check it out. 15 minutes, she's changing her heart. The heart is beating back in coherence. It's opening up. Energy is moving in there. I'll take it. I'll take it. See the difference? They're practicing. They're getting good at it. These are 3 people sustaining heart coherence for 45 minutes each. They learned how to do it, and we see people. I was on the phone with a Harvard cardiologist, and we were looking at the data from our week-longs, and he said, everybody gets better at heart coherence. Everybody gets better at it by doing it every single day. We've seen a great change. Now check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 people, all in heart coherence at the exact same time, in the exact same day, in the exact same meditation. And all we did is we asked people to sit in the front of the room with their HRV monitors on, and we asked the rest of the room to move into brain and heart coherence and have the intention that the people sitting in the front of the room, that their lives be enriched, that their bodies be healed, that their dreams come true, that the mystical find them, and all of these people going into heart coherence at the exact same time, in the exact same day. Their nervous system is being trained by the collective. And when your heart is coherent and it produces an external magnetic field and it interferes with the field of the person next to you, if your hearts are coherent, when those waves come together, what happens? They build a bigger wave. And the energy of the room starts to go up. And we've actually measured it. And after every single week-long event, the energy in the room is completely different than when we arrived. And it's because of the collective. And it is collective networks of observers that determine reality. And it's not the number of people. It's not the amount of energy. You could have entropic energy. It's the most coherent energy, and all you need is a coherent brain and a coherent heart to begin to change reality. How many people understand?